Now, after Jesus lays out this definition of the highest form of love, of this sacrificial love, of the love that he's calling his disciples to, he also then goes on to say something interesting. He says here, "You are my friends if you do what I command you." Now, only Jesus can talk like this. I mean, this is one of those sayings of Jesus that would have originally sounded like a kind of a riddle here. Because if you stop and think about it for a minute, if someone comes up to you and says, "Hey, I want to be your friend. Well, you want to be my friend?" Well, you say, "Well, sure, I'll be your friend." And they say, "Okay, great. If you want to be my friend, you have to do whatever I tell you." That's going to be an immediate impediment to the friendship. That's not how ordinary human friendships work, right? There's not a contingency of obedience built into the friendship, right? But in this case, Jesus is no ordinary friend. And the friendship that he's calling the apostles to is no ordinary friendship. Because he's not just fully man, he's also fully God. And therefore, they do have to keep his commandments in order to remain in this friendship of love with him, in order to acquire the joy that being a friend of Christ entails. And so what he's trying to do here is lead them to a deeper form of love. And he says to them, "I no longer call you servants." And the Greek word here is actually a little stronger. It could be translated slaves. I think the New American Bible actually does translate it as slaves. So he's saying to them, "I'm not calling you slaves anymore. I'm calling you my friends. I'm calling you into a deeper relationship with me. And the reason I don't call you slaves is because I have revealed my heart to you. I've told you everything that the Father has taught me. I haven't held anything back from you." He says a slave doesn't always know what his master's doing, but friends share with one another. They share their hearts with one another. They share knowledge with one another. So you now are my friends. You are truly my friends because everything that I've heard from the Father, I've told it to you. And if you look in the history of the church, this distinction between servants, friends, and then the highest form of love, which is sacrificial love, is something that's actually going to be developed by theologians. And they're going to talk about how in the spiritual life, people will go through a kind of growth in the love of God. First, there's a servile love of God where we fear God and we obey him in the same way a servant obeys its master. Both out of reverence for the master, but also out of fear. But then there's a love of friendship whereby we do what the other person wills, not out of fear, but out of fraternal love for one another. And then finally, the highest form of love is going to be this agape, which is not just seeking the good that a friend can give us, right? But actually laying down our life for the sake of the friend in sacrificial love. A great book on that, if you ever want to research it, is by C.S. Lewis. It's called The Four Loves, where he traces out these different kinds of love and how they were evaluated both in the Greek philosophical tradition, but also in the Christian tradition. It's a classic work. In any case here, we see Christ calling the apostles to the highest form of love, this sacrificial love. They're no longer servants, they are friends now. And the greatest form of love that a friend can show is to lay down his life for the other, which is exactly what he's about to do for them the very next day. Again, don't forget the context. This is the eve of his passion. This is the eve of his death. He hasn't yet shown them what that love looks like because he hasn't gone to the cross yet. But he's preparing them for the cross. He's preparing them to see the cross not just as an execution, but as an act of love by explaining to them that the greatest form of love is sacrificial love. And that's what he's going to do the very next day on Good Friday.